You hear it all the time that guppies make the perfect beginner fish because they're so easy to keep. But how true is that? Are guppies really easy to keep? You do hear it all the time that guppies make a perfect beginner fish. They're so easy, but at the same time, you do hear often that why do I lose so many guppies? So why do you hear that they're so easy if you lose so many of them? And I just think it's because it comes down to they're not super expensive. You can get guppies for $1 all the way up to $75 plus for a trio. Don't don't judge. But they do come in a wide variety of prices. And I think that's one of the reasons is because starting off when you're a beginner, your chances are you're not spending $75 plus on a trio of guppies. You're going to your chain store and buying a handful of guppies for a couple of dollars. They are readily available in pet stores. So whether you're going into your local fish store or a box store, a chain store, chances are you're going to see multiple tanks of guppies available, but that doesn't mean that they're always healthy and they're the ones that you should go home with. And even though they do make colorful additions to a lot of different tanks, whether it's a community tank or a species only tank, a 5-gallon tank, or a 55-gallon plus tank. But they do go well in a wide range of parameters and tank sizes. And I think that's one of the reasons why they are known to be so easy. Is there is a sweet spot that does make keeping guppies a lot easier. In my personal opinion, this sweet spot when it comes to keeping guppy fish the easiest you can, keep them either in a heated room or a heated tank. They are tropical, at least 70 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. pH, don't chase numbers like I did for so many years. Generally speaking, what comes out of your tap works just fine. Just use water conditioner to, you don't want chlorine in the water, but anywhere between a 6.8 and an 8.0. And even though guppies do well in soft water, ideally they just do better in harder water. When it comes to choosing tank size and substrate and filtration, guppies don't care what you choose. But what they do care about is their water quality. And if you want to make keeping guppies as easiest as possible, I suggest you go with a higher water volume. Trust me, I used to think that smaller tanks were easier to keep until I kept larger tanks. And it automatically makes keeping guppies a lot easier if you want to start off with a 10-gallon over a 5-gallon or a 20 long over a 10-gallon. Even just that little bit of increased water volume will make keeping guppies a lot easier. So you can have a sand tank, you can have a gravel tank, you can have a sponge filter or a canister filter. It really doesn't matter. But what matters is keeping your water quality stable and consistent and avoid fluctuations. And if you have an overpopulated guppy tank that's only 5 gallons, that's going to make keeping guppies a lot more difficult. Oftentimes, you don't know what your guppy fish has gone through to make it to your aquarium today. It's really hard to know these specific details because the journey was so stressful and overcrowded bag. They might have a lowered immune system, so they might have been exposed to disease and parasites. And because of the lower immune system, they are more likely to catch something. And if you start off with sick guppies, it's going to make them, no matter what you do, difficult to keep. If you start off with healthier guppies, you're going to have an easier time. Because no matter what, taking care of a sick fish makes them, no matter how easy they are, makes them difficult to keep. Guppy fish are, I think, really easy to keep. They're not a high maintenance fish that requires live feedings 5 times a day or a very specific dialed in pH or tank temperature. Again, they do well in a lot of different combinations and tank sizes and parameters. But one of the things that I do think contributes to making guppy fish a little bit harder to keep is the genetics that come into play. Sometimes oftentimes you don't know at all where that fish has been bred, what that fish has gone through to get to your tank, and you just don't know what genetic factors they're prone to, of maybe how long they're going to live. You can't control that. So I think getting guppies from a reputable source, someone that you know that is breeding them properly, is the best thing you can do. You don't want to have guppies with bent spines and deformity. So make sure you're starting off with the healthiest guppies you can. Check out your local fish club for auctions and meets. And because they have similar water, they generally do better in your water, and that makes them automatically easier to keep. So pay attention to these few things. Sometimes you just have to go to a box store or order them online, and you just kind of hope for the best. And honestly, I do the same thing. I do try to order a couple just in case a few die. And sometimes that's unavoidable. But if you are going to the pet store, like I do often, and you're just going to pick out what you can, look for healthier guppies. I know that oftentimes they don't have the brightest colors when they just get in, but look for their coloration. If you look for the fish that have the broadest bodies, that have the brightest fins, that don't have the shrunken stomachs and the clamped fins. If you can pick through the guppies that do look the best starting off, it is going to make things easier when it comes to this aspect. But again, I buy a few extra just because you do lose some, unfortunately, but getting guppies of a higher quality that you do know the best you can. I do think that guppy fish are one of the easiest fish to keep in the aquarium hobby today, and I will recommend them every time to someone that's just looking to get into this hobby, or an expert that's been fish keeping for longer than they care to say. But if you do want to keep guppies as easily as possible, remember to keep it consistent, stable, avoid fluctuations, and if you can, pay attention to the genetics and get a little extra water volume if you can. And if you do these just few simple things, you're going to have a really beautiful aquarium filled with really easy fish to keep. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.